Hello and welcome to Racers Now. The first entry stage for the final classic of the season, the St. Leger, was today, July the 16th. 1 mile, 6 furlongs at Doncaster on September the 14th. You know the score. First things first, and it has to be a concern really at this stage. There's only 25 horses entered. The race is 2 months away and they've only got 25 entries. That is pretty low. And as usual, Aidan O'Brien dominates those entries because 14 of the 25 are trained by Aidan O'Brien. So that's only 11 horses entered in this race that are not trained by Aidan O'Brien. Pretty concerning if you ask me, but it's a common theme across pretty much all divisions in the UK and Irish racing. The top 3 in the betting are Aidan O'Brien, as usual. 6 of the first 8 in the betting are Aidan O'Brien. We've seen this movie before. Los Angeles is your 3-1 favourite, and the prices are along the bottom of the screen there. From an Ante Post perspective, Los Angeles, 3rd in the Derby, 1st in the Irish Derby. He looks all over a St. Leger horse. To me, a bit of a plodder, takes a while to get going, stays well, etc. But the key with Los Angeles is that Aidan O'Brien and Ryan Moore are quoted in the aftermath of the Irish Derby that he has more class. Now, what I don't really know what that means, but they were saying he has more class than the St. Leger horse. We thought he was a St. Leger horse, but he showed more class. As usual, that might be stallion talk, but you wouldn't be confident of him running at Doncaster in the St. Leger on the back of those comments. He's 4 wins from 5 starts, this Los Angeles. He's a Group 1 winner at 2 and 3, and only 10-1 for the King George over 1.5 miles at Ascot as we speak. So he looks like a St. Leger horse. He walks like a St. Leger horse. He talks like a St. Leger horse, but connections might be thinking otherwise. And let's remember that although they've won it many times, Aidan O'Brien and the Coolmore boys, is the St. Leger at the top of their agenda at the start of every year. At the start of the flat season, is the St. Leger really at the top of their agenda? I think the answer to that is no. And there's another reason for that also that we'll come on to later. O'Brien, as I always said earlier, has got the 2nd and 3rd favourite. They are Highbury and Illinois. They were 1st and 2nd in the Queen's Vase at Royal Ascot. That's usually the first kind of St. Leger trial, if you like, or that's usually when St. Leger horses first come out to play, is in the Queen's Vase over 1 mile 6 at Royal Ascot. They were 1st and 2nd. They could both definitely be contenders in the St. Leger itself. Illinois has since ran again, beaten 2 lengths in the 1.5 mile Group 1 Grand Prix de Paris over in France over Bastille weekend. Although it might have been on a different day this year. Anyway, 2nd in a Group 1 there, Illinois was. Illinois is entered in the Voltigeur at York. Highbury is not. So a lot of these horses that we'll talk about are entered in the Voltigeur at York, which is, usually a very, very good pointer towards the St. Leger itself. We'll mention that race a few times, I'm sure, over the next few minutes. The Voltigeur at York is towards the end of August, around the 23rd or 22nd of August, I think, at York, which then leaves yourself 3 or 4 weeks before the St. Leger itself. So usually a very, very informative trial. Are the likes of Illinois and Highbury contenders? Yes, of course they are. But are they Ante-Post bets? No, absolutely not. And it's basically on the basis that we do not know how many of these 14 potential Aidan O'Brien runners will turn up on the day. And we really have no idea. There's 14 of them in there. Which ones of them are going to run? That is half the game. And unfortunately, at the top of the market, even if you do guess correctly which ones are going to run, say Los Angeles, say Illinois, say Highbury, you're not that well compensated in the market. They're 3, 6 and 8-1 respectively at the moment. And remember, the St. Leger is on the same day as the Irish Champion Stakes at Leopardstown this year, and has been on other years as well. Wasn't last year, as a bit of an anomaly, but is most years on the same day. We've seen the likes of Ryan Moore and Aidan O'Brien running for the helicopter from Doncaster. They've not done that for a few years. So the St. Leger is definitely below the Irish Champion Stakes on the Ballydoyle pecking order. On the board at Ballydoyle headquarters, I think the Irish Champion Stakes would be a higher priority than the St. Leger. One Aidan O'Brien inmate, and we've not really got much further than Aidan O'Brien at the moment, but one of his horses that does deserve some attention at this stage is this Jan Bruegel, who has a different profile to those mentioned thus far. Didn't debut until May this year, unbeaten in 2 starts, latterly in a Group 3. He only won by a neck in a Group 3 at the Curragh, but the soft ground that day and the rainy conditions were probably against him. Took a while to get organised, changed his leads, the usual cliches. He's screaming out for a step up in trip, this Jan Brunel. He's ran over Bruegel, sorry. He's ran over 10 furlongs twice. He definitely wants further. He could quite easily be the Ballydoyle number 1 on the day in the middle of September, and he could quite easily be a lot shorter than the 7-1 he is now, but we just don't know if he's going to run. Goodwood for the Gordon Stakes looks next for him. And I could definitely see him, particularly with question marks over Los Angeles, apparently being more classier than a St. Ledger. I could see this Jan Bruegel being the number 1 on the day. But, as the 14 out of the 25 entries tell you, Mr. O'Brien has got plenty of potential contenders in the St. Ledger. Right, we'll try not to mention Aidan O'Brien anymore. Arabian Crown was as low as 10-1 in the Ante Post list before the entries came out for the St. Ledger. So it's a bit of a surprise and a bit of a disappointment, actually, that Charlie Appleby has decided not to run him. He's not entered in the St. Ledger. This Arabian Crown was really impressive when winning the Classic Trial at Sandown in April, was then considered a Derby contender, but does need soft ground. Didn't run in the Derby. We've not seen him since Sandown. But yeah, I'm not really sure what they're doing with this horse. Is there something more, not sinister, but is there something more significant going in the background with this Arabian Crown? You could quite easily get soft ground at Doncaster in the middle of September. We've not seen him since April. Is there something more serious than just the ground being a problem with Arabian Crown? We don't know. We'll maybe find out as the season goes on. Appleby does have 1 entry, and that is Ancient Wisdom. And I often get the 2 mixed up. Pretty similar names, Arabian Crown, Ancient Wisdom. Forgive me if I get those mixed up. But Ancient Wisdom is entered in the St. Ledger. And there's no surprises there, given that he won the Bahrain Trophy at the July meeting just last week. Again, usually a nod towards the St. Ledger, although I didn't think much of that race. There was only 4 runners when the stalls opened. Ancient Wisdom won, led virtually all the way, had the rail for help. A couple of horses disappointed in behind. Space Legend and Portland for the O'Brien yard, who's not entered. Oh, no, he is entered, actually, in the Ledger. Yeah, not sure what to make of that race for Ancient Wisdom. And given the makeup of the market, like we've been speaking about so far, I think, A, the favourite might well not run. They're on record as saying that, again, he's classier than a St. Ledger horse, whatever that means. And B, Aidan O'Brien has all sorts in here that will not run. We just don't know which ones. I think there has to be an angle to be backing one at a bigger price. We're a long way into the season. Any non-Ballydoyle horse that is entered at this stage surely at least has the intention of running in the St. Ledger. Aidan does have a load of horses in there, and they'll sort themselves out in the pecking order. But the other trainers surely are only entering horses at this stage, at this point in the season, if they've really got off a chance of winning it or certainly running in it. John Gosden has won 5 St. Ledgers in his time. He now shares his licence with his son Thady. And as regular viewers will know, that training team, for me, don't have runners in classics for a day out. I think they basically ignore the guineas, both of them, and they have done for years, in my opinion. And they're into more, staying horses types later on in the season. The Gosdens have got 2 entries at this stage. Theory of Tides is one of them. He was chucked in at the deep end at Royal Ascot in a Group 2 King Edward and did basically. So I'm ignoring a Theory of Tides. But the more interesting Gosden contender is, without question, this Mutaawid. Really, really interesting, this one. He's a full brother to last year's Prince of Wales's and Judmont International winner Mostadaf. He's a half brother to Group 1 winner Nazif, both trained by the Gosdens. Neither of those horses raced at 2, both got better with age, and that leads us on to Mutaawid. Has taken a while to get going. Didn't debut until May this year. Didn't race as a 2-year-old. Took 4 goes to get off the mark, to be fair, but his most recent win in what looked a pretty deep novice race at Kempton was just last week in early July. Blinkers applied for the first time. He looked a completely different horse with those blinkers on. Won as easy as you like. 6 lengths, could have been 16 lengths. Jim Crowley absolutely motionless around Kempton on Mutaawid. Now, he isn't entered in the Great Voltager. Many of these are. So I'm hoping, and fingers crossed, again, he's been put in this race. It's not like the Derby where horses are entered in the race in the Derby as 2-year-olds. today, the 16th of July, was the first entry stage for the Doncaster St. Leger. So, like I say, anyone that's put in the race at this stage, only 8 weeks away, I think it's at least got to be some sort of an intended runner. So, back to Mutaawid. He's not entered in the Great Voltager. That's an early entries race, given it's a Group 2. So I'm hoping that he goes in the Gordon Stakes at Goodwood, which is a Group 3, another St. Leger trial. I think he's a bet at 50 to 1 each way. That's why it's on screen. He is rated 94. Now, some might be inclined to go for a handicap off a rating of 94. He looks really pretty talented. As I've said, he's related to some really good horses. Looked very good last time with the blinkers on for the first time. But Shaker Hissa and the Gosdens don't strike me as handicap plot job types. They don't necessarily need it for their back pocket. So I do think he's a bet at 50 to 1. Yeah, each way. You're going to get 3 places at the moment, but we've only 25 entered at the moment. With only 11 of those non-Aidan O'Brien horses, you might get a small field on the day. I don't necessarily think you're going to be looking at 5 or 6, but, you know, depending on the weather and other factors, could be a smallish field on the day. So what I'm saying is I don't think that anyone will be offering 4 places on the day, because I can't see there being 12, 13, 14 runners. Maybe wrong. But I do think Mutaawid is a bet at 50 to 1. At the top end of the market, Diera Mile is one of the most interesting at 16 to 1. The second shortest non-O'Brien horse in the betting at the moment. Sunway is the shortest non-O'Brien horse. That was the one who was second in the Irish Derby for David Minussier. Again, another contender, but another one that's entered in the Voltager and such like. But this Diera Mile, not seen since he was 4th in the Derby at Epsom. Nothing really went to plan that day. Let's remember, if you watch it back, Outback, caught 5 or 6 wide coming around Tattenham Corner, travelled as pretty much as well as anything. Obviously, Ambiente Friendly travelled really well, but Diera Mile was travelling pretty nicely himself. And because he was out the back, when he eventually straightened up and started his business end, or his attack, if you like, coming out of Tattenham Corner into the straight, the eventual front three have actually probably got away from him already in City of Troy, Ambiente Friendly, and Illinois. They were 4, 5, 6 lengths in front of Diera Mile when Diera Mile straightened up in the straight. Yeah, I thought he did well to finish 4th. He was staying on every single yard, sure to stay. Further in time, this Diera Mile definitely wants to step up. Would love the St. Leger trip, in my opinion. And an intended runner in the Voltager, according to Connection. This Diera Mile is trained by Owen Burrows. And I think the fact that he's missed Royal Ascot and he's missed the Irish Derby, assuming he's fit and well, which I think he is, he's being campaigned like a St. Leger horse, which is a big positive to me. He's had a rest since the Derby, staying on 4th, bred to get further. Next stop, the Voltager. Hopefully runs well, or maybe even wins that, and then off to the St. Leger. So I do think at 16 to 1, Diera Mile is a bet as well. From a win bet perspective, Mutaawid put up at 50 to 1 each way. At 16 to 1, Diera Mile hasn't exactly been missed in the market, but does look the right type for me for the reasons given. And whilst we're at it, at 14 to 1, Diera Mile is probably too big to win the Voltager. You can bet Ante Post in the Voltager at York on, I think it's the 22nd of August. But given the fact that Arabian Crown, Ambiente Friendly, Matsuri, and King's Gambit are all entered in the Voltager currently, but not in the St. Leger, the Voltager might actually turn out to be harder to win than the St. Leger. Not saying that those guys are going to run. You know, they've entered quite early. Ambiente Friendly apparently is going to be dropped down in trip. But just think about it. Arabian Crown, mentioned earlier, the Sandown Derby trial winner. Ambiente Friendly, Lingfield Derby trial winner, has ran well in 2 derbies since. Matsuri ran well in the Irish Derby. Birdman ran well at Royal Ascot. And King's Gambit was a big talking horse at Royal Ascot and didn't win. They're all in the Voltager. Might not run, may run, but they're not in the St. Leger. So it could be a hot race, that Voltager, a really hot one. Diera Mile's 14 to 1 for that, but 16 to 1 for the St. Leger. I do think Diera Mile is a win bet. As usual, we'll be previewing all the big and top Group 1 races here on Races Now. So thanks for tuning in. Make sure you have a look at that. Mutaawid, 50 to 1 each way for the St. Leger. That's the one for me.